My name is Alina Hayes, and 3 days ago I walked out of a bank office with a folder in my hands and a warning still echoing in my ears. Do not come alone, and whatever you do, don't tell your family. I had just sold my apartment, $256,000, wired clean, signed, done. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, it felt like I had just stepped into something I didn't understand yet. My family thought I sold it for us. That's how they framed it. My mother called it a smart family decision. My older brother Marcus said it was temporary support. My younger sister Lila cried when I hesitated, actual tears, like I was abandoning them. So I signed, not because I wanted to, but because saying no in my family had always come with consequences I wasn't ready to face again. I grew up in a house where everything looked normal from the outside. Sunday dinners, birthday cakes, family photos on the wall. But inside, things were measured differently. Marcus got second chances. I got expectations. Lila got protection. I got responsibility. And me? I learned early how to make myself useful. I paid my own tuition, bought my own car, moved out at 22, and never asked for help again. But somehow, no matter how far I went, I was still the one they called when things started falling apart. And this time, it was worse. Because this time, the bank told me something my family never did. Something that turned that $256,000 into a question I couldn't ignore. The call came the morning after the money cleared. I was in my kitchen, barefoot, coffee still too hot to drink, staring at the empty space where my dining table used to be. I'd sold most of my furniture with the apartment. Clean break, I told myself. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Hayes? The voice was calm, professional. This is Daniel Carter from First National Bank. We need you to come in today. There's been a discrepancy regarding your account. My stomach dropped. What kind of discrepancy? A pause, papers shifting. It's not something I can discuss over the phone, but I strongly advise you not to come alone. That's when the air in my kitchen changed. And Miss Hayes, he added, voice lowering just slightly. Do not inform any third parties about this meeting, especially anyone connected to recent transfers. Anyone connected. My family. I ended the call and stood there for a long moment, phone still in my hand. Then I opened my banking app. The balance showed $256,000, right where it should be. But something about the way he said it, discrepancy, didn't match what I was seeing. I thought about calling my mother. That reflex was automatic. Share everything, get her opinion, let her decide the tone of the situation. I didn't. For the first time, I kept something to myself. Instead, I called someone else. Evan. He picked up on the second ring. Hey Lena, you okay? No, I said honestly, but I think I need you to come to the bank with me. He didn't ask questions. Send me the address. I'll be there. I grabbed my keys, my bag, and the folder from yesterday's closing. Something told me I was about to understand exactly what I had signed away. The bank office didn't look like a place where lives quietly came apart. Glass walls, neutral carpet, a faint smell of coffee that had been sitting too long. The kind of place where everything is controlled, predictable. Until it isn't. Evan met me outside, leaning against his car, sleeves rolled up, expression already serious. He took one look at my face and straightened. What happened? I don't know yet, I said. That's the problem. We walked in together. Daniel Carter was waiting for us in a private office. Mid-40s, composed, the kind of man who chooses his words carefully. He stood when we entered, shook Evan's hand, then mine. Miss Hayes, thank you for coming. He closed the door behind us. That small click sounded louder than it should have. Before we begin, he said, sitting down, I need to confirm, no one else is aware of this meeting? I shook my head. No. Good. He slid a file across the desk. Not mine. Thicker, organized, tabs. Yesterday, you received a wire transfer of $256,000 from the sale of your property, he said. That part is correct. I know. What you don't know, he continued, is that within 43 minutes of that deposit, a secondary authorization request was initiated. I frowned. Authorization for what? He turned the file, tapping a page. A transfer, full amount. The room went still. I didn't authorize anything, I said. I'm aware, he replied calmly. That's why you're here. Evan leaned forward. Where was it going? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened another tab in the file and slid the paper toward me. Before I tell you that, he said, you need to recognize the signature attached to the request. I looked down, and my chest tightened, because it wasn't mine, but I knew exactly who it belonged to. It was my mother's signature. Not similar, not close, exact. The same looping A in her first name, the sharp tail at the end of her last. I had seen it my entire life. On birthday cards, school forms, checks she used to sign without even looking down. For a second, I couldn't breathe. That's not possible, I said, but it came out quieter than I intended. Daniel didn't react. The authorization request included a signed release form, a digital confirmation, and a secondary contact verification. Evan frowned. Secondary contact? Daniel nodded and flipped the page. Your account lists a family-linked contact for emergency authorization. Added 6 months ago. I blinked. I never added anyone. He looked at me steady. It was added in person, with ID. My stomach dropped. I didn't need to ask who. Marcus. He was the only one who had ever insisted on helping me organize my finances. The only one who came with me to the bank last year when I refinanced a small loan. The only one who said, you should always have backup in case something happens. I thought he meant support. He meant access. When was the transfer scheduled? I asked. Daniel checked the file. It was flagged before completion. That's why it didn't go through. Flagged why? This time he hesitated. Because the receiving account raised multiple internal alerts. Evan leaned in. What kind of alerts? Daniel met my eyes. Accounts under investigation, potential fraud links, shell activity. The word hung there. Fraud. I sat back slowly, the room tilting just slightly. My family hadn't just expected my money, they had already tried to take it. And worse, they were about to send it somewhere they couldn't explain. For a moment, no one spoke. I stared at the paper like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. Something harmless. A misunderstanding. A mistake. It didn't. Can you show me where it was going? I asked. Daniel turned the page slowly, like he was giving me time to change my mind. I can, he said, but once you see it, you'll understand why I told you not to come alone. He slid the document across the desk. Recipient. Horizon Holdings. C. I frowned. That doesn't mean anything to me. It shouldn't, he said. It's a shell company. Evan exhaled under his breath. Registered where? Delaware, but the operating activity flags are tied to multiple frozen accounts across 3 states. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just a transfer, Daniel continued. This was an extraction. Extraction. Like I was something to be emptied. I swallowed. Who initiated it? The request came from your account, he said carefully. But the authorization chain includes the secondary contact, Marcus Hayes. There it was, spoken out loud. Real. Evan leaned back, jaw tight. So your brother tried to move the entire amount into a flagged shell account within an hour of the deposit. Yes. And if it hadn't been flagged? Daniel didn't hesitate. You would have lost everything. Silence pressed in around us. I thought about my mother crying, my sister begging, Marcus telling me this was for the family. They hadn't asked for help. They had planned to take it. I looked down at my hands. Steady. Stronger than I felt. What happens now? I asked. Daniel closed the file. That depends, he said, on whether you want this to stay a family matter, or become something else. I didn't answer right away. Family matter. The words sat there like they still meant something. 2 days ago, I might have chosen silence. I might have gone home, called my mother, listened to her version first, let her reshape it into something softer, something forgivable. That's how it always worked. But this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was paperwork, signatures, timing, intent, planned. Evan shifted beside me. What are the options? Daniel folded his hands. We've frozen the transaction and secured your account, but an internal report has already been generated. If escalated, it becomes a formal investigation. Against Marcus? I asked. And anyone connected to the authorization chain, he said, including your mother, if her signature was knowingly used. I closed my eyes for a second. I pictured our dining table, Sunday dinners. The way my mother passed plates, like nothing was ever wrong. The way Marcus spoke over everyone, confident, certain. The way I learned to stay quiet, to keep things calm. That version of us didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never did. I opened my eyes. What if I do nothing? Daniel didn't soften it. Then we document it as a prevented irregularity. No charges, no investigation. And they walk away? Yes. Evan looked at me carefully. Lena. I knew what he was asking. Not about the money, about the line. The one I had never crossed. I took a slow breath. For years, I said quietly, they decided what I should accept. I looked at Daniel. Not this time. He nodded once. Then I'll proceed accordingly. And just like that, it stopped being a family problem and became something they couldn't control. I didn't tell them that day. Not my mother, not Marcus, not Lila. I went home, sat in the quiet of my half-empty living room, and let the reality settle in without anyone else's voice distorting it. By evening, the first call came. Marcus. I watched his name light up my screen and let it ring. Then again. Then a third time. Finally, a text. Hey, just checking. Did the transfer clear on your end? I stared at it longer than I should have. Not, are you okay? Not, did everything go smoothly? Just the money. I typed back, yes, everything is exactly where it should be. 3 dots appeared instantly. Disappeared. Came back. Good. We should move quickly then. Timing matters. I almost laughed. Timing mattered to him. Of course it did. Because somewhere in his plan, there was a window. One I had just closed without him knowing. The next morning, my mother called. Her voice was softer than usual, careful. Alina, sweetheart, have you heard anything from the bank? There it was. Not a question. A probe. I went in yesterday, I said. A pause. Too quick. Oh? Why would you do that? I had a call. They said there was something I needed to review. Another pause. Longer this time. Well, she said slowly, you know how banks are. They complicate things. That's why it's better to handle these matters as a family. I leaned back against the wall. Handle it as a family. Meaning quietly. Meaning without records. Meaning without consequences. I agree, I said calmly. She exhaled, relieved. I'm glad you understand. I'll be handling it, I added. Just not the way you expect. Silence. Real silence. For the first time, she didn't know what I meant. And that was exactly where I needed her to be. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, Marcus stopped calling, not gradually, completely. His number went silent. My mother's texts became shorter, careful, like every word had to pass through something before reaching me. Lila didn't reach out at all. I didn't chase any of them. Daniel kept me updated. Quiet emails, neutral language. Accounts reviewed. Authorization trail confirmed. External agencies notified. Clean, precise, final. One afternoon, he called instead. They brought him in this morning, he said. Your brother. I stood by the window, watching the street below like it had something to do with me. And my mother? I asked. Not charged, but her involvement is documented. Of course it was. I thanked him and ended the call. No victory, no relief, just a strange kind of clarity. That night, I drove past my old building, the one I had sold for $256,000. The windows were dark. Someone else's life would start there soon. Mine already had. I didn't lose anything. I just finally saw what I was holding on to. The next morning, I changed my account access, removed every secondary contact, and locked everything down under my name. Only mine. Because some lessons don't come with apologies. They come with paperwork and signatures you'll never ignore again.